future GOAT of the YouTube scene who goes by has remade Pete. And he didn't just remake it, he put his own special twists on it, such as a leveling system that gives you roguelike upgrades as you defeat more zombies, a 9x12 lawn instead of the normal 5x9, and one of his more unique twists, the 24x Conehead, who is an absolute menace to the defenses. And before we begin, let me tell you my 3 main goals within this challenge. Number 1, the obvious one, survive as long as possible. Number 2, try to get this trophy, which at the start I had no clue what time it would take to achieve. And lastly, number 3, try to achieve a better time than 36 minutes and 22 seconds. And you might be wondering, why specifically this time? Well, in his video, said this:
if you can beat 36 minutes and 22 seconds, you have my respect.
A respect of the highest magnitude. Oh, and about 91% of people who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed. So if you end up enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always unsubscribe. Okay, enough yap. Let's get on with the challenge. Like any other PvZ, we get the transition into the lawn with the lawn rolling out, and usually it's ready, set, plant. But this time, it's survive. And the first step to surviving is obviously planting a sunshroom, and then a second one right after. But as the zombies are now starting to come in from the gravestones, we have to plant a puff shroom to defend against them. And as the puff shrooms start defeating the zombies, you'll notice the blue bar at the bottom going up, and we leveled up to level 2, giving us now 3 options to choose from. And I'll individually start looking at the power-ups as I start choosing them, but for this one, I chose to go with the sun shroom value up, in which the sun shrooms now produce plus 5 sun, and also I gained 50 sun instantly after choosing this power up. And as the level went on, I got 4 sun shrooms and 4 puff shrooms down in total. And then right after, I leveled up to level 3, giving me access to 3 more power ups. And from the showcase video of this game, I remembered the roof planting power up, so I chose to go with it this time. I thought this power up was really cool because it's mainly meant for the scaredy shrooms, and the scaredy shrooms that are placed up there auto lock onto the closest zombie no matter where they are on the map shooting them. And as we defeated more zombies, I was about to reach level 4, but at the same time, I gained 2 more lawn lanes. And from these 3 power-ups, I chose the one that we all are probably pretty similar with. This power-up gave us the power to plant 2 puff shrooms on the same exact tile. And I really love that he added this into the game because this is one of my favorite things that I saw in PvZ Fusion. And even though it seems similar to PvZ Fusion, there's actually a big difference. And as I'm about to level up, you'll see that the big difference is that in this game, there's a power-up to stack 6 puff shroom in total. So of course I chose this power up. Around this time we started seeing the newspaper zombies as well, who of course enrage right after the newspaper is taken out. It's cool because in this game their eyes light up red when they're enraged. And as we reached level 7, we had the choice between these 3 power ups. I'd already chosen a lot of puff shroom power ups, and honestly I just wanted to make them more overpowered, so this time I went with the middle power up. But that power up on the right is one of the best power ups in the entire game, but we'll see that one a little later on. As the level continued on, I also continued stacking my puff shrooms, also adding a couple more scaredy shrooms, 1 on the roof and 2 on the bottom. And after reaching level 8, I chose to go with the ice shroom power up, which increases its range and also increases the time that the zombies stay frozen. Looking back at this attempt, I was definitely choosing the worst power ups I could choose, and you'll see what I mean by that a little later on. Oh yeah, there's another cool feature that the creator added, and that was the undead or rising waves, which for a small amount of time increases the spawn rate of zombies from the tombstones. And after reaching level 10, I chose to go with the walnut recharge power up because I noticed that my walnuts were recharging very slow, and this would definitely be needed later on. And nearing level 11, we unlocked 2 more lanes of the lawn. And upon leveling up, I chose the sun shroom speed up, which increases the rate that the sun shrooms produce sun by 10% and also gives me 50 more sun to work with instantly. And there's a chance you're thinking that all these puff shrooms are kind of overpowered as they aren't even letting the zombies get near them. But I promise these zombies get much more difficult very quickly. But as I reached level 12, I chose one of the coolest power-ups introduced into this game, which was basically a walnut bowling mechanic for the walnuts. And if you look closely at this walnut, you'll notice that as it gets eaten, it launches changes into a walnut bowling-like mechanic and destroys all the zombies in its path. And even though I don't use the mechanic too often, there is another way to launch the walnuts, which is just shoveling them. And you'll notice here that I started placing a column of walnuts a little far forward because I realized that my first placement was a little close to my house, and it was kind of restricting my placement abilities for more attacking plants. But as I reached level 14, I finally chose the Hypno Shroom Rage. And this is a really cool power up because if you look at the zombie, it gets supercharged by the Hypno Shroom and takes out a quadruple conehead, even taking out this newspaper zombie that was also approaching the house. And that quadruple conehead is supposed to have 4 times the health of a normal conehead. And as I reached level 15, I realized that I didn't know what a mechanic did, and that was the +1 seed packet charge mechanic. But I'm gonna save that explanation for a little later on when it becomes important. But you'll notice that I shifted my camera view to the right, and this was because this is where the normal camera view is supposed to be. There's this middle camera angle, there is the one to the left as I had it on before, but there's also one to the far right, and we make use of that far right angle when things get crazier. And as the game continued to play on, I started to realize that the gravestones are a very big problem, as they seem to just be constantly spawning zombies in. So for my next power up, I chose to go with the Gravebuster one. And this power up doesn't specifically help me remove more gravestones, but every time you use a Gravebuster on a gravestone, it adds to the stack of souls collected. And each soul collected is almost a 0.7% damage upgrade for all my plants. And what's cooler about it is that it stacks infinitely. But souls aside, we had now finally unlocked the last 2 lanes of the lawn. And you can just see by the amount of zombies that are now on the screen that the difficulty was about to get crazy. And after reaching level 21, I got the choice to unlock this very cool Fume Shroom power up. I guess just makes it very overpowered, but it seems like it's a power up that kind of happens randomly and isn't on at all times. And within the zombies, we're now starting to see the 6 times coneheads. I guess I didn't fully mention it, but the coneheads come in either 3, 6, 12, or of course the ones that I'd mentioned, 24. And right here, I used my very first Doom Shroom. Sadly, it got blocked by the power-ups, but if you look down here at the bottom left, you'll see this green thing went up to 10%. And this green thing is called radiation. And if you look at this bucket head, that's what you call a radiated zombie. And these are basically just very strong zombies. And the more you use Doom Shroom, the more that radiation goes up, maxing out at a 100% chance after 10 uses. But this wasn't the only drawback that the creator added for the Doom Shroom, because every time you use Doom Shroom, its cost also goes up. And honestly, that's a great addition because normally Doom Shroom is just overpowered. We had now also reached the 11-minute mark in the run, and we're starting to see some more annoying zombies such as the All-Stars. And as I leveled up to level 29, I chose the Sunshroom power up, but this Gravebuster power up on the right is very important as it gives me 13 seed packets for the Gravebuster. And I'm now going to explain what these seed packet charges are. If you look down at this walnut, I just placed it and the number on its top left went down to 1. But you can still see it charging up and it go back up to 2 right after. And that's basically what a seed packet charge is. It's basically just a storage of plants. For example, if that number on the top left of the walnut was a 5, it would mean that I could place 5 back-to-back walnuts very quickly without having to wait for a recharge. And of course, meaning that 13 seed packet charge for the Gravebuster allows me to have 13 stored Gravebusters. And nearing the 12-minute 30-second mark, we saw a crazy horde of the 6 times coneheads come in. And I knew they were going to be a problem, so I quickly froze them all with the Ice Shroom. But even with the usage of this Ice Shroom, they thawed out very quickly and started just trampling over my defenses. So as soon as I got another Ice Shroom, I placed it down again, freezing them all one more time. But this still wasn't enough, and it was starting to seem like my only option was waiting for the Doom Shroom to recharge. And as soon as it did, I quickly planted it, taking out most of the zombies on the screen. But even though I was able to take out all those zombies, the damage they had done was a big problem, because now neither did I have enough sun nor enough time to recuperate and replant my defenses. And this just made it easier for the next horde of zombies to easily get through. And at this point, I was just panic planting any Hypno Shroom that I could, even adding some Scaredy Shrooms to the rooftop. The Doom Shrooms were also a big help up and clearing out basically all the zombies. But of course now with even less defenses and the radiation even higher, and also me losing a lawnmower in this one lane in the top, the odds against me were horrific. And over the next minute, I actually did pretty well at recuperating a lot of my defenses. But this joy only lasted a second, as I'll just let you see what the creator had in mind. Yup, the demons had entered, the 24 times coneheads. And if you look closely, even a doom shroom isn't enough to take out a normal 24 times conehead zombie. The only reason the rest of them had perished was because they'd been frozen by an ice shroom, and earlier I'd unlocked an ability for the ice shroom that makes the zombies take 50% more damage by all my plants. And the massive hordes of zombies just kept piling on without rest. And eventually I realized that the main reason for this was that there was just too many gravestones on the screen, and I hadn't been doing a good job at grave busting them. And as the game continued on, I was just in a constant cycle of ice shrooming and doom shrooming whenever I had enough sun. And of course, with my radiation level being at 80%, almost all the zombies were radiated zombies. And as now 21 minutes in, it was looking pretty helpless for me in my defenses. I should mention something else important that I hadn't mentioned before. The 24 times conehead isn't even the strongest zombie in the game. There's also this massive brown coat zombie, which takes up about 3 lanes, so plants can hit it from all 3 lanes, but at the same time, it has over 100,000 health, which is equivalent to more than 500 brown coat zombies. And another detail about this mini boss that becomes important later on is the fact that the hypno shroom can't hypnotize it, so your only option to destroy it is through sheer firepower. And around this time is where my run starts falling apart, because the ice shroom itself gets capped at 300 sun, but the doom shroom on the other hand, its sun cost increases infinitely the more you use it. And my sun shrooms just weren't getting enough sun to me for me to keep using the doom shroom. And at last, in this lane towards the bottom, I'd been overwhelmed by an all-star and the mini boss zombie, surviving nearly 24 minutes. But of course, this is nowhere near that 36-minute 22-second mark. And this wasn't even enough for me to unlock the highest trophy. And of course, I wasn't about to give up and quickly went in for my second attempt, but this time with a lot more knowledge and an actual strategy that I'd come up with. The strategy still revolved around planting the sun shrooms and the puff shrooms for the early levels, and adding to the strategy, I first chose the puff shroom spam power up, which gave them a total 3 seed packet charge, and also they recharge 50% faster. After getting to level 4, I chose the 6 stack puff shroom ability, and you'll notice that this time I planted my puff shrooms a little farther forward. And I had noticed that last time one of my main mistakes were that my puff shrooms were way too far back and they weren't hitting the zombies that were very up front. But that aside, I once again chose another puff shroom upgrade, and this one makes it to where when I plant a puff shroom, it places 3 instead of 1 or 2. That ability also gave a 25% damage boost to Scaredy Shroom, as well as a 300% health boost to Fume Shroom. And as I approached level 7, you'll remember that not grave busting was one of my biggest setbacks in the last run, and I got very lucky with getting the soul upgrade for the grave busters this time very early on. This allows me to start stacking up the grave busters so we get more and more damage every time we take down a gravestone. In the next level up, we got the walnut bowling upgrade, and my next upgrade gave walnuts 25% more health and also 1 more seed packet charge. And you also see that I'm planting my walnuts 1 space away from my puff shrooms, and that 1 space is where my strategy gets devious, and I'll explain the reasoning when it makes more sense to. But right after, I unlocked roof planting and quickly shifted my screen to the left, planting a Scaredy Shroom on the roof, because if you remember, those guys auto lock onto the closest zombie to the house, and they could end up saving me if I get into a bad situation. As the run went forward, I continued planting more Scaredy Shrooms, walnuts, and puff shrooms whenever I got the chance, and there were 3 important power-ups that I was looking for in this moment. And the first one I got as soon as I reached level 12, which was this Hypno Shroom spam, giving the Hypnoshroom +4 seed packet charges. And the importance of this will also make sense a little later on. In reaching level 13, I had a pretty tough choice between the middle and the left abilities, but I ended up going with the left walnut ability as I think the 50% recharge is really good and needed for the early game. And as we're reaching the 5-minute mark, I'd more than half filled up the roof with scaredy shrooms and also planted one on the ground in the back. And as I reached level 16, I chose the ability for the Gravebuster that gave us 13 seed packet charges. And that was actually the second important power up that I was looking for because I didn't want to get overwhelmed by the gravestones. And about 20 seconds later, I received the last important power up, which was the Hypnoshroom Rage. And this Hypnoshroom ability was what made this whole strategy devious. Because if you look in the bottom lane, those zombies ate through my walnut. But what happens after the walnut gets eaten? The zombies, of course, march forward, and one of them is hit by the Hypnoshroom, turning into a superpowered zombie on my side. And as this superpowered zombie eats all the other zombies, we can replace our walnut and our Hypnoshroom very fast. But this strategy gets even better because after reaching level 19, we got the option to get Hypnoshroom Rage Plus. So that super zombie that we just saw rummage through all the other zombies would be even more unkillable from now on. And you can see here why that gravestone power up was also important, because I can just quickly grave bust all the graves when the zombies clear out. And as this walnut Hypnoshroom strategy was basically taking on all the zombies, I had slowly started planting more fume shrooms, scaredy shrooms, and an army of sun shrooms in the back. About 3 minutes later, I had a full column of fume shrooms down and almost 3 columns of scaredy shrooms. And if you remember from last time, this wave of cone heads had actually made it pretty far into my defenses. And this time, although some did get through my walnuts, they could not get past the Hypnoshrooms. And as soon as they were all cleared out, I of course restarted the process of replanting my walnuts and my Hypnoshrooms, at the same time grave busting the gravestones. At this point in the run, this strategy seemed near perfect. And even when the 24 times coneheads came in, they also fell victim to the Hypnoshroom strategy. And this strategy was so efficient that I'd stacked up 10,000 sun. At the same time, I also had 0 radiation going on. And this was actually a very important factor to the strategy. And that was the idea that I wasn't going to use Doomshroom until it became completely crucial, because the less we use Doomshroom, the weaker the zombies are. Around this time, I'd also started replacing my column of Puff Shrooms with Fume Shrooms, because I'm pretty sure that the Fume Shrooms are just better for the late game. And around the 20-minute, 30-second mark, another way to improve my strategy connected in my brain. And that was the idea to acquire one more column for my defenses. So I started off by planting walnuts 1 column up and then placing Hypnoshrooms right behind them. And this actually ended up being pretty easy to do, as I completed the column of walnuts and then quickly got Hypnoshrooms basically behind all of them. But now there's another problem. The Fume Shroom column that was farther back couldn't reach the zombies that were behind the walnuts. And my fix to this was replacing the back column of Hypnoshrooms with Fume Shrooms, and then replacing the back column of Fume Shrooms with another column of Scaredy Shrooms. Oh, and as a mini boss has come in, I should explain another good strategy they can use against it, and that's getting one of your Hypnoshroom zombies onto it, and then also using the Ice Shroom to freeze the big mini boss. This basically allows your zombie to get a lot of damage off on it, and then your other plants can normally just finish it off. There are honestly pretty crazy hordes of zombies coming in that would take away all of my walnuts and a lot of my Hypnoshrooms. But after the Hypnoshroom zombies got their work done, it usually gave me more time to start replanting all of the defenses once again. And getting close to the 24-minute mark, I'd also almost reached 20,000 sun. And at the 25-minute mark, my defenses had basically been complete as I added the last Scaredy Shroom. We were now 26 minutes in, and the only power-ups left were a 3-second minus recharge to the Doom Shroom and also 1,000 sun on the spot. And as I didn't need any more sun, I was just picking the Doom Shroom power up every time. And that's actually a very important detail that comes into play later on. 27 minutes in, the strategy was still holding strong. 28 minutes in, still no problems. 29 minutes in, we're still doing fine. We had also reached 106 souls collected from the gravestones. Also, I should mention that ice shrooming the big big boss zombie was very important because it reduced its health by basically 25%. And that was due to that one ability I'd mentioned earlier where the zombies take 25% more damage from my plants if they're frozen by the ice shroom. About 30 minutes and 20 seconds in, we actually almost had our first leak in the strategy, and that was this bucket head in the bottom that I didn't realize came up from the gravestone and reached the puff shroom. But thankfully my defenses were able to handle it normally. And then closing in on 31 minutes, everything still seemed fine. 31 minutes and 30 seconds in, we had our second leak with this mini boss. As I got through the walnut and quickly got through the hypno shroom, also killing one of my puff shrooms. This was actually where I got a little scared because this was the first real leak in the strategy. It was basically a sign that the zombies were getting much stronger very quickly. But by 33 minutes, we'd recuperated and everything seemed fine once again. 34 minutes in, everything was still good. 35 minutes in, still holding strong. But as we're nearing that 36 minute, 22 second mark, things got a little crazy in that very top lane. And the zombies actually seemed to be breaching my defenses pretty easily. And right here, out of panic, I was forced to use my very first Doom Shroom, bringing our radiation to 10%. But looking away from that, we had now finally beaten the 36 minute and 22 second goal that we had set. But of course, that was only the third rule. If you remember the first rule, it was try to survive as long as possible. And that's exactly what I tried doing, but in that upper lane, bucket heads were completely ravaging through all of my scaredy shrooms. So I quickly froze them, shoveled the scaredy shroom, and then planted a hypno shroom right in front of them to take care of them. But while I was dealing with that, more zombies in the bottom lanes had gotten very far, and I tried doom shrooming them, but that one cone head somehow made it even farther. But a second doom shroom was able to take it down. But then there was more all-stars going there as well, so I had to freeze them with the ice shroom. And then once again planting another doom shroom to take out the all-stars. And I was really confused on how everything was getting so far. And if you look in the top lane, you'll see why. Somehow my bucket head was super, but the all-star just completely ran through him because I guess it was too fast for the game to kind of read it. And at that point, I'd realized that the run was basically over and it was time to just spam doom shrooms and ice shrooms over and over again. I had actually gotten so many -3 seconds Doom Shroom power-ups that the Doom Shroom recharge was literally instantaneous. And now the run was just me spamming Doom Shrooms whenever I could. This is honestly a pretty crazy sight to see. This is also the reason I kept mentioning my built-up Sunbank, because it was all going to use right here as the Doom Shroom's cost kept going up and up. And this strategy was working until it didn't, because this 24 times cone head, not only did it survive one Doom Shroom, not even two, but 3 Doom Shrooms, and I almost caught it at the end, but it got past and slipped through to the house. And there you have it. I reached 38 minutes and 37 seconds. And with this, we'd also reached and achieved that last trophy, which was actually only 26 minutes. If you end up playing the game, let me know what you get as your personal best. I hope you enjoyed the video, and once again, thank you to Bob. Okay, bye-bye.